Hello, beautiful people. Did you miss me? Okay. This one will be short and sweet, but I think that the Earth is wobbling. The Earth is moving uh, like a drunkard. And why do I say that? Well, it does say it um, in Isaiah 24. And I remember I had studied this because I've been reading Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Um, but the other thing is, it's like ever since I was little, okay, I could get my bearings. I mean, I knew which way north, east, south, and west was, okay? I knew where the sun rises, where it's going to sunset. Um, if I looked at a map, I knew where I was. I remember the picture in my head, but I could also recognize the terrain, everything. I rarely ever got lost. And when I had been someplace for the first time, you know, I could get my bearings and I would know my way around the place. Uh, knew my directions, right? And also when I drove cars. Now I've driven trucks, big trucks. I've driven smaller cars. I've driven sports cars, vans, sedans, coupes, even motorcycles, you know. And I've always been able to, like, when I'm driving a car, I'll give you an example. It's like I could kind of, in a sense, I could feel um, the boundaries of the car. I knew where the bumpers were, the sides, the back. Rarely ever hit anything. Didn't get in a lot of accidents. Because I could. I don't know how to explain this, but I could kind of visualize and I could feel the dimensions of the car. Like when I was parallel parking, I'd always get straight, right? Now, um, also when I'm walking, it's kind of like, okay, equilibrium was always pretty straight on. Last couple months, uh, it doesn't feel right. That's the best way I could say it. Like when I'm parking and I'm doing a parallel park, or whatever else, and it's like I've always gotten it straight. Never hitting the tires, never hitting the curb. And now it's like I feel off canter. You know, something's wrong. And I don't know if it's magnetics. Uh, the animals and the birds, maybe they feel it as well, but I definitely know something's different. Um, Talking about birth pains, right? And my last video was about the earth and the weight of sin on the earth. And a lot of times where, Jesus would say, I will redeem Jerusalem, or I will redeem the land, right? The land is alive as well, and the land is cursed as well. So then I'm noticing earthquakes, right? More of them? Yes. In different places? Yes. Okay. Volcanoes? Yes. And then I've also noticed, I grew up in an earthquake area, still live in an earthquake area, get them all the time, right? So you kind of get unfazed to a certain degree, like twos, threes, 1, 2, threes are kind of like, depending. There's sharp jolts, and then there's other ones that kind of do waves, right? Um, what I've noticed is there's been a massive increase of the amount of earthquakes and the amplitude, the intensity. And what I mean is 1, 2s, and 3s, we don't blink an eye. You get a 2 or 3 somewhere in Midwest or somewhere else that never gets an earthquake, it's a big deal because they're not used to it. Just like people live where there's tornadoes. They know what to do. They go into shelter. Or hurricanes. They know how to batten that down the hatches. And what I've seen is that where there used to be 2s and 3s, there's 4s and 5s. And where there's 4s and 5s, there's now 6s and 7s going off, right? Or higher, which tells me everything's ramping up. The birth pains. The other thing was, and I've had a couple dreams about lava blowing up through the ground and steam and dust. And if you ever see an earthquake and a pool, the water sloshes back and forth, right? Because of the oscillation of the earth. Well, the wave water always wants to find a level place, right? A plain, a flat area. Okay? It will always settle. Like if you put water in a glass halfway full and you tip the cup, the water will always get the horizon, okay, when it settles. So then I'm thinking that it was like under our feet, under the continents, there's groundwater. There's also rivers of water under the crust. I think so, because they find rivers of fresh water under the salt water in the ocean. There's rivers of fresh water under the oceans, right? It says it in the Bible, and I've read it, you know, the layers above and the layers below, you know, there's different layers in the sky depending on the oxygen content, ozone, stratosphere, and all this stuff, troposphere, right? There's layers in the ground, which you can see from earthquakes where they broke it apart, and then you know, jotting up, and then there's all these little layers. Okay, it's sediment. That's geology. So it's almost like the continents are kind of moving, but also the water underneath the continents is moving, and so is the lava, which would make sense because if the earth is moving to and fro, well, the fluids inside are moving as well, just like I talked to you about the water in the pools during an earthquake. Okay, so then that kind of makes sense why there's volcanoes going where they normally don't, because of the pressure, you know, like a concussion. You get hit upside the head, what happens? Your brain and the fluid moves to the other side because of the inertia of the hit, right? They call it concussion. And so the fluids get moved around, your brain gets moved around. Well, kind of same with the earth, you know. Take a coconut and shake it, you know, the fluid inside. So, and in Isaiah, it talks about a couple of things, and I'll read it really quick. Isaiah 24:18, and it shall come to pass that he who flees from the noise of the fear of the fall into the pit, and he that cometh up of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. For the windows from on high are open. Which I went, wait, windows open, portals, where did we hear that? The flood, Genesis 7:11. Windows are open and the storehouses of the deep, right? And I'm going to, you know, and it says, and the foundations of the earth do shake. Now, I'm thinking all these meteor craters and these holes that they're finding, like in Russia and other places, right? They may not have been meteors. Those may have been the opening of the deep, the waters underneath, because what happens in Genesis, I think it's 8:11, where the waters receded or what, and go back into the storehouses underneath, right? So I'm thinking these meteor craters are not craters, they're pimples. You pop a pimple and boo, right? And the water comes up, or, you know, you get the idea. So I think what happened is, you know, when the flood came, the windows were open, and we just talked about the windows on high are open, and the foundations of the earth shake. Well, that's kind of what happened with the flood. Okay, so in Isaiah 24:19, I don't want to go off on a tangent, I digress. You know, the earth is utterly broken down. The earth is cleanly dissolved, and the earth is moved exceedingly. Okay, the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it. See, remember I was telling you, the sin and iniquity is the transgressions, and it's heavy on the earth. It's weighing on the earth, and the earth is being affected. Okay, and it shall fall and not rise again. Now, I think there's going to be major earthquakes in the crust, big cracks, continents move. Are we reeling to and fro like a drunkard? I think it's a slow move now. I think when the major thing happens, right, and they talk about the pit and people falling out, and then he that cometh out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in a snare, right? Hell is underneath us. And you can read it in the Psalms, read it through all over the Old Testament, where it's like, don't take me down, my soul, down to the pit of Sheol, to the pit of hell, and even in Luke chapter 16, the rich man and Lazarus the beggar, right? I think when the big crack happens, the dead in Christ will rise first. Did they do it during the crucifixion? Yes. There was 3 hours of darkness, the sun went dark, there was a great earthquake, and the dead rose from the tombs, right? Will it happen again? I think so, right? Because in 1 Corinthians, I think 15, and 1 Thessalonians 5, could be backwards, on the verses. I think the chapters are right. The dead in Christ rise first, and then we that are alive will be changed in a twinkling of an eye. And we will meet the Lord in the air, and we'll meet him in the clouds, and we'll be with him forever. Woohoo! Okay. What's going to release the dead? Well, during the crucifixion, sun went dark, great earthquake. Okay? You can look at the sixth seal, which I think is Revelations 6, verse 9. What? Revelations 6, verse 9? And the sun went dark, the moon went dark, right? There's a great earthquake. So, could these be connected? We will see. In fact, we're the last generation. We will see all these things come to pass, right? The good stuff and the bad stuff, okay? But we know who wins in the end. So, Son of God, Jesus, the way, Yeshua, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by him. There is only one name given under heaven by which a man may be saved, or mankind. Okay? Don't want to leave you women out, and I don't want anybody to get offended. Unnecessarily, I guess, right? Bottom line is, there's only one way to get to the Father. One way to be in heaven. Now, through his Son and the atonement of his blood. He died on the cross, was in the grave for 3 days, and rose again. Death could not hold him. He defeated death, hell, and sin on the cross. Are we still dying? Yeah. Is there still sin in the world? Yeah. Does hell still exist? Yes. Is it all going to be done away with at the great throne judgment of God? Whoever's name is not written in the book of life will be thrown into the lake of fire. That should scare the living bejeebies out of everybody. Okay? How do you not go there? Well, accept the sacrifice that the Son did. Believe and trust that he is the way, he is the truth, and his blood is sufficient because he did it. We couldn't do it. We still can't do it. How many religions are in this world? And they're all still trying to get to there. And God says, there's only one way you can get here. And that's through my Son and what he did. I will accept that. I will not accept your works. Why? Because our works are like filthy rags. Pride, arrogance, sin. The heart is wicked above all things. God said that. But he also says that he could take the stone of heart, the heart of stone, sorry, dyslexia, take it out and put a heart of flesh in there. Right? and he will be our God. He will live here on earth. There will be no more sun because he will be the light of the world. He is the light of the world. So, choose Jesus, choose life, and share the good news. There's a way to be with Father in heaven who's absolutely perfect and sinless, and he's willing to accept us on his terms, not ours. Anyways, love you guys. See you in the next video.